Hi, welcome to NDE TV. I'm Peggy Robinson. Today's guest is Carol Cooper. And on this show, we normally focus on near-death experiences, but today we're going to focus on the ones left behind. And we have a lot of people in the audience have said, this has helped them cope because they're dealing with the loss of a loved one. And so I'm hoping Carol's story will help. Hi, Carol.
Hi, how are you? Hi, everybody. My name is Carol Cooper. I'm a mom who lost her only child. My son, Brian, suffered from separation anxiety disorder. And as a young child, he was attached to me. And so my life basically was conjoined with him. I tried to get him help, but it really didn't seem to matter. He had a lot of anxiety and he did go for help, but it didn't seem to do anything. And so as a result, he also was an overeater and he ended up gaining a tremendous amount of weight. And at the age of 11, he had a 52 size waist. So not only did he have anxiety, but the overweight contributed to him being bullied and ostracized at school. So needless to say, I had my hands full, but this was my only child and I dedicated my life to him. And I made a promise that I would take care of him and do whatever I could to give him a happy life. So it was very challenging. And by the age of 17, I put him in a different high school. And his life took a major turnaround because he ended up connecting with the coach. And the coach took a liking to him. And my son would always sit on the bleachers watching people play football. And his dream was always to play football, but he would never ask because he was too embarrassed. And he always came home and said, "Mom, nobody will have a suit to fit me." So a suit, a uniform to fit him. So one day the coach saw him on the bleachers and went up to him and they had a nice talk. And he said, "Brian, if you want to be on the team, try out." And he said, "I don't think you would have a uniform for me." And he said, "Don't worry about that. I will get you a uniform." So he was put on the team. And that, I think, was what was the beginning of a transformation for Brian, because he was motivated because the team members took a liking to him and they were very influential in getting him to lose weight, which he did. And the separation anxiety was still there. That did not leave. However, he was starting to become much better in his appearance and his self-esteem was starting to get better. So I did see an improvement there, although the anxiety and the attachment remained. So now I'm fast forwarding again until Brian started college, Monmouth College. I was able to get him to go, but he commuted back and forth so that he would know where I was. But in his junior year, he decided he was going to try to live off campus, which he did. And he was still very anxious. And I think that's where he started with the drinking and the partying. And I noticed that. And then he also went to Florida State University for a semester where he was also drinking, but his separation was breaking. And so I sat and I weighed the options. So he's a young adult, on campus, and his drinking was not to the point where I would worry, because I knew Brian would never want to gain back the weight because he had now lost an excessive amount of weight, and he was like 6'1" and 180 pounds from 300 pounds. So he looked amazing. I even had the surgery for him where he had the excess skin removed. So looks wise, he was beautiful. And he was even doing some part-time modeling. But inside, unfortunately, my son was still a train wreck. He did not see himself that way. He still perceived himself as huge. So, the problems were there and the drinking was starting to help him to feel like he fit in. And again, I didn't see any problem there. So in his senior year, he decided to go to Australia. That was huge. And I said, we had many, many conversations, and he was going, then he wasn't going. He was going, then he wasn't going. Finally, he said, "Mom, if I don't go, either you're going to die or I'm going to die. We have to break." And I said, okay, Brian, I'm with you. But, being this attachment, it was almost like a drug for both of us. Like I felt like I needed him as much as he felt he needed me, because this was my entire life from the day he was born. So it was a big adjustment for both of us. But he went and he called, but the phone calls got less and less. And I think it was at that point that I definitely saw the attachment breaking somewhat. So when he came back from college, he was extremely intelligent. I mean, he could do anything on the computer, numbers, anything. He was so smart that when he was younger, we would sell Beanie Babies. And he was so good at what he did that he managed to save enough money at the age of, he started at 12. By the time he was 16, he had enough money to buy a DeLorean, which he did with his own money, put it in the garage. And from that point on, he liked the nicer things in life. But he appreciated, that he got them on his own. He was a good boy. He was very loving. He loved people. He loved animals. He helped the world. And that's very common with people that have addiction. They have a big heart. But what I always say, and I'll say this till the day I die, people who have addictions don't get up and say, I'm going to be an addict. They get up and they say, I have terrible anxiety. I have ADHD. I have bipolar. I'm suicidal. I'm depressed. And they find a way out. And this is how the addiction starts. So most people that have an addiction, the moms, dads that I talk to, it's a common factor that they all say, oh, my son had anxiety. Oh, my son suffered from depression. My daughter had this. So it's, I believe that that's what really started him off. So it started with Adderall, which he was prescribed. Then the common back problem, he fell by his complex, had a back injury, got oxycodone, started with Ambience because he couldn't sleep. So the Ambience, the Adderall, I don't know how many oxys. I don't think he was really that much into it. But so unfortunately, the end of Brian's life was tragic. He could not sleep and he was up for 3 days. And I guess that was from the Ambience not working anymore. And somebody came to his house, which I later found out, and gave him something that said, they said he would be able to sleep. And he didn't think, and he snorted up his nose, and it was fentanyl, and he died alone on the bathroom floor. And that was the end of our story. And it's very sad because he did not expect that to happen, and he just wanted to sleep. And this is what's happening today. And I don't want to make this about overdosing because everybody knows how prevalent fentanyl is. But I do want to say, for anybody listening, I beg you, please talk to your children. Let them know that fentanyl is out there in everything. On my journey, I meet people every day. I have a huge following now, and people reach out to me to tell me their stories. And a lot of times their daughters, sons pass away. One lady shared her story last week or a week before about her daughter that was at a party, had menstrual cramps, was given an ibuprofen that was laced with fentanyl, and she died at the party. So what I'm saying is, don't think if your son is not on heroin or that he's not going to get it. It's in everything. Tell your children, don't take anything off the streets. So from that point, I'm going to move on. So, okay, so now everybody knows that I'm a mom who lost her only child. Now I started my journey after my son passed. And it's, I wrote a book called, I'll just show it briefly, the cover. It's called Knock Knock, It's Me, Mom, The Awakening of My Spirituality After Losing an Only Child. Why did I call it that? Because I was brought up to believe that there is no afterlife. When you die, and that's it. My belief was people go under the ground. And so the first thing that came to mind when my son passed was that that's where he was. I didn't know from, connecting to your loved ones or that there's an afterlife, that people have near-death experiences. I knew nothing about that. So I started my journey and I became very spiritual as I am today. And what I can say is that I do now believe that there is an afterlife. I mean, I have been on the most amazing journey and I have met the most amazing people. And I was blessed to meet Pegi through a near-death experience website, which I frequent often, because that to me is the biggest proof that our loved ones do go on. I mean, if you can actually go to heaven and see your loved one, there's no better proof than that. And I can never dispute that. And I remember a story reading, and everybody knows the Eben Alexander story of the neurosurgeon that, had a near-death experience, and, his cortex was severed, and there was no possible way that this man could have experienced what he experienced. And I watched that video over and over and over again. Every time I got into a dark place, I would go to that video and I would say, my son has to be somewhere. He has to be somewhere. And when it first happened, like many people, I made the decision to commit suicide. I said, I can't live 5 minutes without my son. There's no possible way, because, with an only child, with no children, as he had no children, so no child, no grandchildren. I was not married. I do have a significant other who's been by my side, and that's another story, which I'll try to get into later. But I totally believe that there was a reason why I could not do it. Now I believe it. At that moment, the reason I didn't do it is because I was scared. I mean, I had the bottle in my hand and I sat there and I said, oh my God, I weighed all the options. My boyfriend's going to find me. My brother is still on this earth. What is he going to do? I weighed out all the options, but my grief was so bad that I just wanted it to stop. But then of course, my dog, who I've been told my son comes through him, which I believe, sat right next to me at that moment, like he wasn't there. And then all of a sudden she was right next to me looking at me. And it was all of that put together, and my fear that I didn't believe in the afterlife. So I didn't think if I did this, I was going to see him. I just felt like then I'm gone. I couldn't do it. And I went to sleep and I woke up and something was inside me. I don't know if it was an awakening, but I felt different. I felt like I needed to do something. I needed to have a purpose. And so not long after, I started my foundation called The Life for Brian. I did it all by myself. I did the legalities. I did everything. Now, before Brian passed, I made these teddy bears. They were bullying bears. They came with a book, and the book was a story, and I inspired to do these bears because of my son's, being bullied as a child. And so I came up with this idea to make these bears that could teach children how to have positive self-esteem. And they were called the Ready, Set, Go anti-bullying bears. And they were a yellow bear with a cape and a mask, and it came with a book, and it was about an old woman who met them on their way to school, and they were crying, and she said, close your eyes and repeat the magic words, ready, set, go. Get ready to overcome your fears, set your goals high, go out there and be the best you can be. When they opened their eyes, they had turned into superheroes. And she gave them a pendant to wear that said, ready, set, go. And she said, now you wear the pendant and remind yourself that you too could be a superhero. And I made a cartoon that's on my website. And these became so popular that I was voted the best toy of 2016. And I was supposed to be on Good Morning America. And then my son passed. So I took the bears and I threw them in the closet. And I said, Brian's gone. I don't want anything to do with this.
So you were best what? I didn't catch it.
The best toy of 2016.
Oh.
Yeah, so I was supposed to be on Good Morning America because I was one of 10. And I was honored that, this happened. But again, I wasn't in the state of mind anymore. So I just put them away. But mind you, I had 2,000 bears sitting. So, fast forward to my foundation, as I started to get into what I wanted to do, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just knew that I had to honor my son in a way that his legacy would remain. If I was going to be here, I had to be here with him in some way, whether it was through a foundation or going to different places to tell my story. It had to be something where I could talk about him. So one day I was sitting and I said, oh, you know what? I have an idea. This was like a year, not even a year later. I said, I'm going to take those same bears. It was like I heard it in my head. Like I believe a lot of things that I do comes from him. Like I believe he still speaks through me. And I almost heard him say, Mom, do something with those bears. They're good. So I said, okay, I'm going to turn them into inspirational bears. And I'm very well known for my bears. And it's not that I want to be known for my bears, but I do use them for my foundation. And I'll just show you quickly. The one that's been very popular is these. They are the comfort bears. And what they say is, when you feel like you can't bear the pain, hug this bear and say my name. And there's a locket around the neck that opens up, and you put your loved one's picture inside, or ashes, or whatever you want to do. And they come in purple, which was for drug awareness, and they come in pink.
Now, did you start out making these, or did you have someone make them?
No, everything I did is from me, 100%.
Okay.
Nobody helped me with this. And, you know, they come with a card that explains the message, which is simply, you see, it was ready, set, go, like my other bears. It had the logo on the foot. But I changed the message to read, when you feel like you can't bear the pain, hug this bear and say my name. Cherish the picture that you have placed in the locket. And always remember to get ready to carry on, set a goal, and go out there and honor your loved one. And when I tell you, I mean, these are all over. If you go on the internet, you'll see people sharing with little boys sleeping in bed with them, people carrying them around. It's very, very rewarding. When I did my bullying bears, I forgot to mention, I was a special education teacher. I taught autistic children, and I used the bears with them. And they were in the gift shop. They had to earn points in order to get them. And they were all over on the school bus, in the gym. I mean, I got so many different people reaching out. I even had Jacqueline Larita from New Jersey Housewives. Her son had autism. And she had my bear, and she wrote a nice testimonial. So this warms my heart when I see people saying, you don't know how your bear helped my little girl. She talks to the bear. She thinks it's her dad. She has his picture inside the locket. So again, this is part of my journey. It's just a small part of my journey, but it's part of my journey. So now, why the book? So it's not like I had enough to do, but I said one day when I went and I spoke at different places, I always made it a point to share some of the signs that Brian sends me, because his signs are so off the charts that it's as close to having a near-death experience as you can. I'll share one that really, like, if I see a penny, a feather, a blue bird, you know, a hawk, I know those are all signs, but for me, being the skeptic that I am, it was never enough. And my son knew that he had to do more. And so one day, not long after I was having a bad moment, somebody called. We were on the phone for a while, and she asked me if I'd like to have lunch. And I said, as much as I would love to, it's just not good for me right now. It was very quiet in the house. There was nobody home, no computers. She said, I understand. Whenever you're ready, you know, just reach out. So I said, okay. And I took my phone and I went to type, you know, back to her, thank you. And I see writing there. It said, why, you know, eat your food. You want mommy to get you chicken. I said, what? So I sent it to her because I thought I was losing my mind. And she immediately called me. She goes, I don't understand your message. I said, I don't either, but I had to make sure that I had that because I think it's from Brian. It's when my son was young, he never ate anything but chicken fingers. I would say, Brian, eat something else. No, 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 I want chicken fingers. And there was that message on my phone. This was only one of, I can go on and on. One other one I'll just share is I would buy crossword puzzles, you know, the scratch offs. And I would always say, Brian, give me my aha moment. And I would always get the word aha. Every time I had a puzzle, I would see the word aha. And I said, oh, Lord, I said, you need to give me more. I know that you keep sending me aha, but I need more. Just as I said that, I went into the store, I got a ticket, I came out, and I see aha, R.I.P., rest in peace, son, those 3 words in the puzzle. So, I mean, I took pictures of all this, and when I wrote my book, I share everything, all the pictures in my book of the signs. And that was the reason why I started this book, because when I spoke and I had a little binder and I would, at the end of the meeting, I would say, can I share a few signs? That people would stand up and clap. And they would come up to me and say, you really need to write a book, because that really helped me when I have no hope whatsoever. But when I saw how you connect with Brian, it really gave me hope. Please, someday write a book. And so I sat down. In 3 months, I typed till there was no tomorrow. Every time I wanted to get up, I heard him say, Mom, no, you're not done. I kept going and going and going. And I thought I can almost feel like he was making me type, like I wasn't have no control. And when I finally got done with the book, I was like so happy. It came out so good. And I stood up and I said, Brian, thank you. And all of a sudden I hear this thunder as loud as can get, like he was clapping. And since then, I still get signs. But what happened was after I wrote my book, it hit #1 on Amazon. It's still very low in the charts, which means people are still really getting a lot out of it. But it wasn't about selling books. It was about sharing my story, getting my word out there, convincing people that there is life after death, there is something else, trying to get people to understand my journey. And so after I wrote this book, I was totally overloaded with people reaching out to share their stories. And that's how I was trying to get near-death experiences, because I figured, okay, I didn't want to write another book, but I shared my journey. Now I want others to share their journey. So the book is a sequel to my first book. It's called My Broken Heart Lives On Without You. And I share dream visitations, and I share near-death experiences, and I share, like what happens to some people is they were approached by a stranger, and the stranger came into their life and they did something unbelievable, and then they disappeared. So touched by an angel. And then I have stories of bedside things, people who cannot move their arms and they reach up to the sky before they pass. And I have stories that little children can connect with loved ones. And I have how people have changed their lives with, I did my nonprofit, but there's people out there that have turned their tragedy into something very positive. So I share their stories. And the book has evolved, and I am getting such amazing stories. And I'm connecting with so many people, just as Pegi and I connected, that I believe my son has led me to, because I feel this is the next part of my journey. And, like if you go to my page on Facebook, you'll see all the people that are reaching out to tell me how I've changed their life. So I always believe that if I can save one life, then I know that I'm on the right path. And I can't tell you how many people I've saved. And I still help kids off the street, and I put them into to sober living homes. And I get calls every day of young kids that don't know what to do and they need to go somewhere. So the money that I raise through what I do, I take that money and I donate to help them into a sober living. And I connected with 10 other nonprofits, and we go on soberlivinggift.org or gotrecovery.org. And that's where people can apply for assistance, and then we help. And I'm not going to tell you, like people think I'm a superstar and they think, oh my God, she's so strong. I'm not any stronger than anybody else, but I can tell you I found a purpose in life. And that purpose is what keeps me strong. And when something positive happens, that keeps me on the right track. And I tell people, get out of bed. Even if you do one thing, get out of the bed and just do something, because from what I've heard over these my son passed in 2016. This was my son, Brian. He was a beautiful, beautiful boy.
Yeah.
And what I have learned is that when we're happy, they're happy. It raises their energy. If we're always crying, they hurt. They don't want to see us hurt. And if you really believe that we are here for temporary stay, that this is just a learning, and that we will go home and we will reunite with our loved ones, that's what gets me through. Because when I believe that Brian is waiting for me, then I know he's safe, and he's probably a lot happier than he was when he was here, because he was not happy at the end. He started to gain the weight back. He was unkempt. He was depressed. I mean, God knows what he was going through, and he hid a lot from me. So I don't even know the struggles that he was having, other than what I saw once a week. So, I mean, when people say, how do you do it? How do you get through your life? How? This is how I do it. I talk, I share, I connect. And that's what I tell people. If you see somebody, that's suffering, just a simple text. I'm here if you need to talk to somebody. I always do that when people reach out to me. I always say, if you want to talk, I'm here. I'll give anybody my telephone number. I don't have a problem with that. And I'll always make time, because that one phone call could be a huge difference in somebody's life from somebody actually living another day. And so that's my mission. That's what I do. I've been called the warrior mom. I've been called all kinds of things, the angel, but honestly, I'm no different than anybody else. I just have found a way to turn something horrific into something positive.
I'm trying to get you on here. Get you on with shoot, I'm tongue tied. There we go. I had another guest on that lost a child, and I was surprised when he said that when they went to these grief support groups, they didn't have anything about spirituality.
No, they didn't for me either. I did go to a support group and I did not find it helpful because they focus a lot on sharing other people's stories. And I guess they feel when people come to these meetings, they want to talk where they're not judged, where they can, not be looked at or, I guess judged. And so when I went to a support meeting, and I did it a week after Brian passed, which was way too soon, but I didn't know what to do. I had to be with people. I had to do something. And everybody was shocked that I was there so soon. But what really bothered me is these people were crying like it just happened 5 minutes ago. I mean, and then they would say they lost their child 15 years ago, 10 years ago. And I looked at my boyfriend and I said, oh my God, is this going to be me in 10 years? Like it gave me no hope whatsoever. And it really upset me. And I ended up leaving and never went back. And I don't know that these groups, they don't focus on spirituality. Unless you want to talk about it, if you bring it up, then I'm sure they would. But I honestly believe you're better off to connect with people in groups that deal with spirituality, because you can find a lot of people with like-minded thoughts that you have. And I've met so many people on Facebook. I mean, I have hundreds of people that I connected with, and it's all the people that understand me. I know where to go. And in my book, I share all the groups that helped me. I share all the books I read, all the videos I watched that helped me on my journey. Everybody has a different journey, but I think spiritual journeys all have a commonality, a common factor where people want to know, where is their child? Where is their husband? Where? I mean, they don't want to know he's in a better place. They don't want to know you'll get over it. That's the worst thing you could say to somebody who lost a child. Oh, are you still grieving? I mean, I hear this all the time.
Yeah.
They don't know what to do. Just last week, the strangest thing happened. We just recently moved up to Pennsylvania. I used to live in New Jersey, and this is my safe place to be. It's quiet, it's different, and it's someplace where I could just be me and relax. And the realtor that sold me the house had lost his child, and we kind of connected that way. He lost his child quite a while ago, and she was very young, maybe 13, on a accident on a four-wheeler. And he's never, ever gotten over it. Of course, you don't get over it. And it was 15 years ago, I want to say. But what happened was last week or the week before, I had been outside with my puppies. I came in and I looked on my phone and it showed a missed call from him. And I said to my boyfriend, did you hear the phone ring? He said, no, it didn't ring. And I said, but it shows a missed call from Kurt, our realtor. Why would he be calling, I wonder? He goes, I don't know. So I called him back and he answered the phone. He was crying. I said, Kurt, it's Carol. I said, I saw you called. He goes, who? I said, Carol, the one you sold the house to. He says, oh, he says, no, I didn't call. I said, I see a missed call. He goes, no, I didn't call you. I'm sitting here. I'm having a horrible moment. He said, I have nobody to talk to. Nobody understands what I'm going through. It's like, I don't know where to go. And I said, oh my God. I said, it's unbelievable. Your number was on my phone as if I'm supposed to call you. And we ended up talking, a good 45 minutes. And I shared so much of what I'm saying now to him to give him some hope and to get his spirits up. And by the time we got off the phone, he was laughing. And he said, oh my God, what an intervention this was. He goes, I can't thank you enough. He said, because I didn't know what to do. I didn't know who to talk to.
Divine intervention.
Isn't that amazing? And, I just got off the phone and I had such a warm feeling inside me that, oh my goodness. So, I mean, yes. Did Brian do that? I believe so. I believe he knew this man needed somebody. But that doesn't mean that you can't pick up the phone and talk to people that are having these times. And if you go on Facebook, 9 out of 10 times, you're going to see somebody that says, goodbye, I'm leaving. I don't want to live. I can't do this anymore. My heart is broken. You know, it's those people that I actually take the time. I don't care if I know them, don't know them, they're in my friends list or not. I always reach out and say, please call me or look up my, you know, I have some videos that I did that are on my website, similar to this, but they were done years ago. So I wasn't on the part of my journey that I am now. But basically, they were just hope, you know, messages of hope. And I always encourage people, watch my video, call me, reach out, you know, and when they do call, I mean, they're so broken. I mean, half the times I can't even understand what they're saying from the crying. And they just want somebody to tell them their daughter is someplace, their son is someplace, their son is okay. The guilt that people carry when somebody, you know, they lose someone, it's awful. Everybody goes through the what ifs. Why should I have done this? You know, if somebody's in a car accident a mile from the house, why did I ask him to go get me ice cream? If I didn't ask him, he'd still be here. But I don't believe that. I did believe that, but now I believe that everything's written. When it's our time, it's our time. I
Yeah,
know.
and that's what NDEers are told usually. No, you know, it's not your time. You know, I'm
Right.
the only one I know that was told it is your time. The answer was no, I wasn't going back. But, you know, most of them say they were told it's not your time. So apparently we all have a time.
Yes, and I've been told, and also books that I've read said that we have 3 exit points that we can choose. And when I look back, I remember my son was in a very bad car accident that when he got out of the car, nobody could believe that he got out of the car. And then also a year before he passed, he said somebody put something in his drink and he ended up overdosing, and the police officer that came to the house was able to save him. And he said, welcome back, you got another chance in life. And the 3rd time was it. And the other thing that happened to me is, and this is very, very strange. One day I'm sitting on the back porch with my dogs. It was a beautiful day. Brian was alive. Everything was good. And in my head, like loud, I heard, your son is going to choke. And I'm like, what? Like, I didn't even know where that would come from. I ran in the house. I was very upset. I said to my boyfriend, what happened? He said, well, that's strange. And I said, maybe because Brian lives alone and he eats fast. And I don't know why I thought that. But after that, I was so upset that I would call him every night. Did you eat dinner yet? You know, and he'd say, no, Mom, it's only 6 o'clock. I didn't eat yet. Well, call me after you eat and you're going to bed. I wouldn't tell him because how would I didn't want to upset him. And what could I do about that? So I forgot about it. And then a couple of months later, same thing. I was doing something out of the blue. It's a loud voice, a man's voice, an unrecognizable voice. Your son is going to choke. And I'm like, oh, again. And then I got really upset and I said, what do I do? Do I tell Brian? What can I do about that? And John, my boyfriend, said, you can't do anything. You can't do anything. You just have to, I don't know what to tell you. And he did pass from an overdose, but the cause of death was asphyxiation, which is another word for choking. So he did choke, and I was warned. And this is another thing I hear in near-death experiences. One where a woman was in a boating accident. I don't remember her name, but it's also in my book, where she was submerged underwater and the rocks were ripping her body apart, but she didn't feel anything, but she was getting ripped apart. And she also had a near-death experience. And when she went to heaven, she was told she was going to lose a child. Why? I don't know. But exactly how she was told, the exact age.
Are you talking about Mary Neal?
Yes. Yes. You know that story, right?
Yes.
But she was told that her son would pass, and he did,
Yeah.
right? On a skateboard or something. So, I mean, yes, we are warned or told or prepared for certain things in life, you know, divine intervention, whatever, you know, I think God was trying to prepare me for what was to come. I don't know if it did, but I always remember what I heard now. I mean, so obviously I believe that I was trying to be told, whether it was my father or somebody over there trying to tell me. But also, like, you know, when I was talking before about angels coming into your life, the man that I'm with now, I've been with 13 years, he's not the typical person that I would be attracted to. I'm very like New Yorkish style, and he's like very country boy. So it's like we didn't go together at all. And, you know, it was very unusual when we did make the connection and ended up being together. And we would always say, what, how did we end up together? It's weird. But he was the nicest man I ever met, very kind-hearted, and my son was alive and he really liked him. And so I knew that, you know, this was a good thing. And so long story short, after my son passed, like, and my boyfriend knew how bad I was, he didn't know what to do for me because I was just not wanting to live, I mean, at all. He sat down and he held my hand and he said, do you know, it finally made sense to me why we're together? And I said, why? And he said, because Brian made sure that I was in your life because I think I'm the only man who could have gotten you through this. And it's true. And as soon as he said that,
It would gotten what?
He said, I think I was the only man that would have been able to get you through this.
Oh.
And as soon as he said that, I had chills up and down my arms and legs. I knew that he was sent to me on my journey, in my path, that I needed somebody strong, and he's not emotional, and he's level-headed, and he's intelligent. Yeah, exactly. Because if I didn't have him, honestly, I don't think we would be talking right now. And if I was here, I don't think I would be here in the way that I am now, because he gives me strength and he helps me every day and encourages me when I do things that you're doing a good job. And that's another thing, you know, when people pass, a lot of times the mothers have other children or they have, you know, other people in their lives, and that's what keeps them strong. For me or anybody else that lost an only child, you don't really have any children, you know, to go on for. So you have to find something else, whether it's a partner or a foundation like I do, because my foundation helped me to connect with a lot of people. So I meet a lot of people and I have so many friends. I don't even know, I lost count how many people I have connected with. And they're all so, like, if I ever make a post about my dog not feeling well or something, I mean, the prayers are unbelievable. They just unbelievable. When it's my birthday, unbelievable how many people. I don't know half of the people, but how, you know, how these people, every day I get, somebody said, I think about you all the time. Whenever I'm upset or I have a bad moment, I always think about how you're doing, how you're getting through this. And I love to see your videos and your posts. And that's why I'm so happy to do this video, because it's long coming. I knew that Brian wanted me to do this because there's so many people that are asking me, where can I see your video? I'm so excited. I'm going to watch it, you know? So again, it's me telling my story to try to help. It's no other reason. It's not about fame. It's not about money. It never was. It never will be. It's about helping other people to feel better about themselves and get through their lives.
Yeah, and that's what people often say to me too. You know, you're so strong. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm determined that, you know, if I can help somebody not feel so alone when I felt so alone through so many different situations,
right,
and give people a voice, and, you know, and now, you know, that I'm able to give, like you, a platform to be able to say what you have to say, you know, that's just all I can ask for.
And it's very healing, right? I mean,
yeah,
when you hear other people's stories and you're so blessed that you're able to share near-death experiences, because like I said before, that is so healing for me, because you don't get any better than actually seeing your loved one. Like if I could just stick my head up there for 5 minutes and see my son smiling, I think I would never have a bad moment. I really think that, but I'm not ready to have a near-death experience. I don't want to do it that way, but so I get as close as I can by other people talking about their near-death experiences.
and people don't seem to know how to deal with our grief, our sorrow. You know, like even like a few months ago, my husband got a bad diagnosis and we just got it confirmed today. It's either a miracle or a misdiagnosis, because he does not have that.
Oh,
So
wow.
we're like, you know, so celebrating today. But, you know, when that happened, I reached out to people. My husband's going to die. You know, this is what the doctor said. And I was shocked that nobody's there. Like you can hear crickets, you know, nobody's there. They don't know. I don't know if they don't know what to say. They got busy lives, but we couldn't believe how left in the dust we were.
And that's the time when you need somebody, anybody, just somebody to reach out. You know, it's a horrible feeling when, I mean, if something happened to my boyfriend right now, oh Lord, I don't know. I mean, yes, it's horrific to lose the child. There's nothing worse than that. But I mean, losing a spouse is pretty bad too. I mean, some of these people, that's all they have in their life. And,
Yeah,
and
especially
then
like you, he's your rock, you know.
exactly,
He's
exactly.
if you're strong, that's why. Because
Right,
we have that
exactly.
rock. And without that rock, what are we, you know? I couldn't do anything without him.
No, it's true. And that's when you really find your strength, when you're on your own. I mean, I'm strong, but I rely a lot on him to give me strength at times, because there's times where I feel like I can't get up, and it's like a sucker punch, you know? And as many signs as my son sends me, and as many videos as I watch, and as many people as I talk to, I still have those moments where, oh my God, where is he? You know, because you can't, it's hard to go from the physical to having to have a relationship spiritually. Even though you can have a spiritual relationship, it's so hard sometimes to make that connection. And, you know, I just want to see him. I want to feel him. I want to hug him. I want to touch him. And that's what people want. So if they can't get that, then they need it from somebody else, whether it's their husband, their friend, or somebody. And that's why I say, reach out. It takes 2 minutes out of your day to say, I'm here. You know what? I don't understand. But like you said, a lot of people, especially people who have not experienced loss of a child, in my case, they have no idea what to say to me. What do you say? You know, and they always think they're going to say the wrong thing. Well, you don't have to say anything. Just give me a hug. That's all. Just say, I'm here. You know, you don't have to say anything.
Or I don't know what to say, you know?
Right,
Just
exactly.
be honest.
And unfortunately,
What can I do? You know,
right, what can you do? Right. And unfortunately, in my case, even though I don't believe my son was an active drug user, I do believe that this was an accident waiting to happen because of his anxiety. But the stigma out there, oh my goodness, you know, like there's still a lot of mean people. When people say that my child died from fentanyl poisoning, I see the comments, and sometimes I just can't even read them. It's like, why do you make excuses? Your child didn't have to do that. You know, people just can be cruel. They can be cruel. And, you know, you have to have a hard shell, you know, like you have to just say, that person's not worth my time, and move on, because there's 9 people behind that one person that's going to give you the right words. So, I mean, I sit outside a lot of times in different places to share my story of my foundation. And, you know, I do collect money, and sometimes people will come up and ask me, you know, oh, what are you here for? What's your story? And one gentleman that I remember, after I told him what happened to my son, he had a dollar bill in his hand, and he wanted to know what happened. As soon as I said that, he put the money back in his pocket. He says, oh, I don't give to those kind of charities. He said, your son had a choice, and he walked away. It took every bit of my soul not to get up. But I cried. He hurt me. I mean, and this is, you know, what happens in this world. You know, people don't want to talk because they're afraid of being judged. They're afraid of somebody saying you weren't a good mother, you know?
yeah. And if that, you know, was his choice, but it wasn't your choice to lose your son. It wasn't your choice that your son make those choices. We all make bad choices, you know.
Absolutely.
We could all die of, you know, so many things that would be our bad choice. You know, and I'm very, you know, against drugs. I'm sure you are too. You know, and I advocate, you know, don't start using. And then, because I don't make excuses for it, I don't enable it. I'm very vocal against it. And so many people come at me, well, you don't know what it's like. It's a disease. And like, listen, if you got a problem, do something to help other people not start. Don't make excuses for it. Don't make it okay. Fight and try to say, hey, somebody else, don't start this. Look at me. Don't say, well, I got an excuse and so it's okay. You don't understand. Don't do that, because people are dying.
Yes, they are.
And the kids, you know, the parents get drug addicted, and then, you know, the kids are the ones that suffer, the parents, you know. And so it's not a judgment, it's a truth. Just help everybody to stop this addiction. And like you said, that one lady, her child just asked for an ibuprofen and it was laced.
Yeah. I mean,
And
it's true. It's
And
true.
years ago, I was on Ambien. I was prescribed Ambien to help me sleep. I was having a lot of anxiety. And I ended up with what some would call a suicide attempt. But the hospital said it wasn't. They blamed it on Ambien and sent me home.
No, that could
They said
really,
it's protocol that you be admitted, but they said this was Ambien. And so, but still, I still had that stigma. And then if I would have taken more than what I did, then I would have been a drug overdose. But even though I wasn't a person that did drugs.
right. But the
So,
only thing I could tell you is a lot of kids start from the doctors prescribing them oxycodone, which is what I think got my son started, because when somebody has anxiety and they give them that kind of medication, they have an addictive personality to begin with, which my son definitely had an addictive personality because of his weight and everything else about him. It's like, it's so hard to get off of it, like I don't know. I mean, you could blame this one, that one, whatever.
yeah, and I have anxiety too. And when you have anxiety, you get to anxiety, and you're like, I want to take something. And so some of us eat,
Right.
and that's what I do. I eat. I don't turn to drugs or alcohol, but some people do. But I can see where they do it, because you got to grab onto something and hold on.
That all goes with an addictive personality, like I never took drugs in my life. I would never want to, because I just don't like the way that I would lose control of who I am or what I'm doing.
Right.
But, that's why even after my son passed, I was given a drug, and after seeing what happened to my son, I said, no, 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 but the doctors are very quick to do that.
Yeah.
And if I had a addictive personality and my mind was where it was, yes, I could very easily become addicted. And that's how it starts. And yeah, I mean, of course, the ideal thing is to bring awareness, and that's what I do. I advocate to young kids before they start, of what happened to me. You don't want to happen to you.
Yeah, and get them on a prescribed medication for anxiety, so they don't have those urges and that fear where you guys gotta take it in your own hands, do something, grab something to make me okay again.
Yeah. But again, like I said, this is my journey. I believe that we plan what we're going to do before we come. And this is what I plan to do, to have it lose an only child and to become an advocate for a lot of different reasons and a lot of different people.
Yeah, because you could have committed suicide that day.
Oh, absolutely. 150% I could have done it, because nothing mattered. As much as I knew how my passing would have a terrible effect on my boyfriend and my brother and a lot of other people, I did not care. I mean, you don't care. It's like you lose all rationality. You don't think, all you want is the pain to stop, because I always said, even when my son was alive, and I had a really hard life with him because of his anxiety and, his weight and everything else, and him being bullied. It was a very hard life, but I always said, I don't care how hard my life is, what he does, I would never be able to live 5 minutes without my son. Never. And when it happened, it was like, what? Like, it's so hard to, you just, all you want to do is die. You don't want to even know 5 minutes. Like I said, I can't live the rest of my life without him. I can't. We talked at least 10 times a day. That's how many times he called. And if I couldn't get him on the phone, I would get all upset. Same with him. And it's like, you can't comprehend living without somebody that's so important to you and who has made you who you are and who's part of you. Like Brian was half of me. So when I look back, I'm proud of myself for how far that I've come and how much that I have done to make a difference in this world. And I believe when I go, they're going to have a big party for me.
And that's your way of him still being with you.
Yes.
Of, making your bears and your book and your speaking and you're reaching out to people because it's about him. You're still being a mother to him.
I'm a big advocate on grief and how to get through it, because that's all we got after we lose somebody. It doesn't matter how they pass. You know, it doesn't matter how old they are, whether they're 10, newborn, 50, it's a child. It's somebody that the grief is the same for me as it is for somebody else. And it's a matter of having somebody to help them. You know, it's
And the more we love, the more we're going to hurt.
oh my, yes, 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 yes. You know, and there's other children. A lot of people that lose someone have other children, and they always say that they'll have to be strong for their other children, and that's very important because those children are grieving too. And the last thing you want to do is ostracize them because they need their mother or father. You know, so a lot of times you get lost in your grief and you don't see what's around you. So I always say it's very important to stay close to who you still have, you know, because
After I lost my twins, I had my 3 little boys at home. And it's like, how can I appreciate them when I'm mourning these 2? It's like you can't live in the same place. So appreciation and mourning at the same time. And then you feel guilty because you have these 3 kids right here and you love them, but you can't get over this grit. And it's like you got nowhere. And I was only 25 and had nobody to talk to. And then one day we're coming down the road, me and my ex, and I just suddenly realized the date. It was my due date. And it would have been a scheduled C-section. So I knew, what day they would have been born. And as soon as I realized the date, I burst into tears in the car. My husband's driving, my ex-husband, and he says, "What's wrong?" And I said, well, actually he didn't ask me what's wrong. I burst into tears and I said, "This is my due date. My twins would have been born today." And this is the first time I openly cried, talked about him, because he's the type, don't talk about anything. I don't hear it. And I just burst out. And he said, "When are you going to get over that?"
Oh, see, yeah,
My due date, it hadn't even been a year.
that's exactly what I was saying.
But I'm still not over him. You don't get over it. You're not going to get over it. You're a mother.
Never. When people say, "When did your son pass?" and I said 2016, but I always say, but it feels like 5 minutes ago because it makes no difference to me how much time passes. It's like yesterday that I got that phone call. And, that will never, ever change. It never will. It's just the way that I handle it now. I still can't look at pictures. I mean, some people can, but I cannot look at his picture because when I look at his picture, it's almost like I'm seeing him, like now I see him in my mind, but when I see his picture, it's almost like he should be here. I can't do that.
And it's like love that is invisible. When we fall in love or we're handed that newborn baby, those times we fall in love, it's invisible. We can't see it. We just know how we feel. And when we come out, in a relationship, in that moment where you realize, I love them, it's all invisible, but we know. And it seems like when we lose that love, the only thing we have is the pain to show us that we still love. That's just the only sense I can make of it.
And that's why you always need hope. Without hope, you have nothing. You have nothing. Without belief, it's always hope and belief, because if you really believe that you will see your loved one again, which anybody who has near-death experiences will tell you that you will, then I believe, it will be much easier to spend the rest of your life. I mean, like for me, I'm more at the end than I am in the beginning. I'm glad that I didn't lose my son when I was in my 20s, because that's a long time. And the other thing is, when I was growing up, the fact that I was brought up to believe there wasn't an afterlife, I was also petrified of death. Because if you don't believe there's an afterlife, then death is very final and very scary. Yeah. And I was so scared that I had to take classes, and I became like a hypochondriac. So every time I had a headache, I had a brain tumor. Every time I had a pain, I had cancer. Every time this, and I lived my life in total fear, and I'm still afraid. And I know a lot of these groups that I go in, when I'm reading different posts, a lot of people say, "Can you tell me, were you afraid to die?" Because I'm petrified. I'm not the only one. So obviously this is very common. And I'm always happy when I hear people say it's just like walking through the door, like death in itself is nothing. It's how you die. I mean, nobody wants to die from cancer or a slow death or whatever. But once you do pass, it's like a beautiful somebody there to get you, and most people that go, they don't want to come back, you know. But then again, I have to also be careful when I talk about that, because if you're talking to somebody who has nothing, no family, no children, and they're all alone, and you're telling them what a beautiful place heaven is and how your loved ones are there, I have to be careful, because these people are one step into, you know, thinking about suicide, you know. So I also believe that, you know, you need to carry out your life the way that you planned it to be. And I think I'm in it for the long haul. Whenever God feels that it's my time, then he'll take me. But I'm not going to take myself out, no matter how hard it gets for me.
My ambient incident, that's where I was headed. I had drowned in a pond, had NDE when I was little, right by a house we lived in, and the shack had come up for sale, and I bought it. Like, it didn't cost a few $1,000s. And I was walking there. I walked down the highway, down train tracks, and went back there and walked right past the pond, went up to the house. And the whole time I'm telling Jesus, I know you understand. You know, I'm at the end of my road. I can't take any more. Of course, I wasn't realizing I was still under the effects of the Ambien that kind of puts you in a dreamlike state almost.
Yeah.
And so I just scratched this little like goodbye note on a receipt, and I had some prescriptions, and I took a few. Look, you know, I didn't take that many, but I thought it would do it, I guess. And I drank my coffee, and I just lay down to die. And when I woke up, I was rested. But I don't know. I had a point. I forget what I was going to say.
So for your near-death experience, if you don't mind me asking, what did you experience?
Oh, I know. I'm sorry. I was going to say is I just was telling God, you know, I'm going to be with my twins and all of my miscarriages. That's where I was going. So, you know, you can have suicidal ideation, you know, after loss of children. But what was you saying?
When you experienced your near-death, you were very young. So did you see any loved ones?
No, my first one was at age 5 drowning, and my second was with the twins. It was ectopic pregnancy. It was the biggest tubal pregnancy they ever saw. It was actually showing. That was 2 months. But no, my drowning was out of body. I was a ghost kid. I drowned. It was horribly painful, but then I was out of my body, and I was at the ceiling where my mom and sister was getting stuff ready to bring down to the pond, and I could feel their emotions. I couldn't hear anything audible like of this world. Everything was telepathic, and then feeling emotions. And I had voices telling me things, and a voice said to me, a female's voice so far distance away later, where I was having her above the pond, she said, "Don't go yet. If they find you soon, you might go back." But I got impatient, and I was just like, I was running around yard playing with kids. I was talking to these boys that was walking down the highway carrying fishing poles going back home. And I was like, "What are you doing? Huh? Where are you going?" He was ignoring me. And because I didn't realize, you know, and then the younger one, we started talking telepathic, and he was telling me where they were going. "Oh, we've been fishing. We're in a hurry home. We're running late." And then like, "Oh, okay." And I realized they don't see me. And so, yeah, I didn't have the word telepathic then, but I just knew it was kind of communicating a little bit, but it wasn't enough for me, a kid trying to find kids to play with. And so that's why I was running around the yard with kids playing, going in and out of houses. I was a ghost kid. I was fine. And then I got understanding and knowledge, like download into me. And I was told that my family didn't love me. And I said, well, and then I was told right after that, God sends children here to be loved. That's why he sends them here. And I'm like, wait a minute. You just told me my family don't love me. And then you say that's why God sends them here. So I was still me. I was just as me. I, you know, didn't have a body. I was invisible. And I was getting used to, you don't have to walk. You can fly. You can hover. You can do all these things. And I thought it was really fun. I didn't have to eat my vegetables. I didn't have to go in at bedtime. You know, there was all these, I could see the advantages to it. It's like, okay. And then I come back. I woke up, and my brother was carrying my dead body over his shoulder, and I was coughing water down his back. And my mom and sister was walking up ahead, and they were like, "Oh, okay." And so they went off the house and left me there, like sick. And I have all this knowledge of everything. I just was told, was learned, experienced. And so I chose to go back. You know, I didn't know the word suicide at 5 years old, but I thought, I choose that. Why would I go over to the house that family don't love me? Why would I do that? I'm going to go back. I know drowning really hurts, but I'm not going to fight it this time. I want to go back to what I was just doing. And then the female voice that said, "Don't go yet. If they find you soon, you might go back." Well, she now appeared to me and said, "No, don't." And I said, "But you know, they don't love me." And she says, well, you'll have a lot of love someday. And I said, well, where will I find it? And she pointed down this road. And I think I was just like saying anything to keep her with me. And so I was changed after that. But then the 25-year-old NDE, it was the tunnel, it was the bright light. I never heard of near-death experience before, of course, in 86. And then there, I thought I was alone in the bright white light. And I had to get back to my kids because I was abused growing up. And so I didn't want my kids to grow up unloved and abused like I was. And so I'm like, I don't want to be here. And I'm looking around. I'm thinking, why am I alone? Am I going to be alone for eternity? And then I see a panel of people. It was just a faint outline. And I started screaming because I knew the one sitting up front center, that has to be God. And I'm like, I can't stay. And so I had this whole, that's what I was told, that it was my time. The answer was no, that I wasn't going back. And so I pled my case, I can't leave my kids down there, see if things happen to me. And so I said, okay, if you say, I got to stay, then if you can show me my kids would be better off without me for whatever reason, I agree to stay. But if not, I beg to return. And then Jesus, I believe it was Jesus, man from the back, I just see from the back, he's standing waiting on me. And I joined him. I seen myself like this invisible, but I seen a physical me join him. And we went down into earth to the future, just like that. And I saw my boys in the near future, and they were discussing the fact that mom has died. And my middle son, Jeremy's very sensitive. And he told his older brother, Matthew, he says, I don't care that you say mom is dead. I want her back, and I want her back right now. And I felt his pain so bad, I retracted, and I'm back in heaven. And, so it was like that. It wasn't like anybody else's near-death experience. It was dramatic. So, but then when I come, so then they ended up with, Jesus now sitting beside God, but still they're all like a faint outline. But I think, like maybe in my imagination, I've created I think I see Jesus' feet in the bottom of his robe as he's sitting beside God, because I know I'm crumbled at Jesus' feet at this point now. And on my hands, the physical hands come up from my face, and I cry out to Jesus, which I can't see when I look up. What I see is my hands, and I say, who else will teach them about you? And then I'm back in the wheelchair thinking, what in the world?
So if you didn't plead your case, do you think you would not have come back?
I know God's, and I actually said in that one point, I said, I know you're omniscient. If you can look into the future, and that's when I asked about my kids and be better off. And so, I know God is omniscient. He can see in the future, but yet he told me it was my time. And the answer was no. So I feel like I was given this scenario because I saw scenarios during both NDEs. Scenarios were open of things. It was either memory, like a created scenario to help me understand, like an illustration for a child, like your book, you have illustration. And so I think that I needed this experience to come back with what I have now. The rest of my life is gratitude. And I do these podcasts. I do everything I do. And my book that I wrote, everything is out of gratitude because God let me come back to raise my boys. And that's what is my fuel. That's what keeps me going, is just that gratitude that because, a lot of mothers die from ectopic pregnancies or other reasons, and they don't get to raise their kids. And I'm just filled with gratitude every day that God allowed me to come back and raise my kids. And, my oldest son, Matthew, he's a grandpa now. My boys are in their 40s.
Oh, wow.
And I have grandchildren. And, I could have not had that. My boys could have been raised without a mother, and they would not be the wonderful men they are today if they didn't have a mom that would, make sure they were okay. And so I'm just grateful. I'm just grateful. And still stuff happens, and I'm thinking, I can't complain about that because I get to come back and raise my boys. No matter what it is, I can't complain.
And that's what you were meant to do. And that's part of your plan, whatever it is. I mean, do you believe in that soul planning, that we plan what we're going to do before we come? I mean,
well, the thing is when that was introduced to me, when I first heard about it, it was brought in a bad way. They were using it to promote abortion. They were saying that children want aborted because they decide with their guides before they come to the earth plane to be aborted. And I'm like, whoa. No. As a child that was told during a 5-year-old drowning, children are sent here to be loved. That's why God sends them here. And to have fought to conceive, because after the twins I had trouble conceiving,
Mhm.
infertility. And so what I did, you say you had the one son. Well, I had my two boys, but the third one was my mentally disabled sister. We were in the process of adopting when this happened. And that was another reason I had to come back, because if I wasn't there, he's my biological nephew. My ex wouldn't have adopted him. He would have been in a bad situation. And so I had, a lot of things I had to take care of. But so what I did is I became a foster parent, and I ended up with 60 foster kids, and we adopted
Oh, what?
10, including the nephew. And,
Wow.
I just filled my home with children because I wanted so many kids growing up. I always said I would have at least 10 kids. And like life took this choice away from me. So no, you don't. You don't take this away from me. I will foster. And then I wanted to adopt, but back then in the 80s and 90s, foster care wasn't what it is today. You didn't get to adopt. Kids just weren't made available for adoption. They changed the laws in mid 90s and made kids available for adoption. They gave parents only so many months to get their act together. If not, they had permanent custody. You go with adoption. And now they're starting to go back the other way. They're not doing that as much, which is good because they went overboard. But so I was able to take advantage of that when they became available. I got a sibling group of 5. I remarried, got a sibling group of 5 1 year after we were married, and continued doing therapeutic foster care. And we got 4 girls, sisters. And then a year later, they came available. So that's when we ended up adopting 9 kids, plus my nephew that was adopted. So I replaced my twins. And the first sibling group of 5, when they called me about them, they mentioned there was twin girls in the sibling group,
Oh.
Samantha and Stephanie. So we changed their last names, Samantha Hope and Stephanie Faith. And, so they don't replace, but it's sweet, that you feel like I get to raise some twins. So
See, now, if you did not come back, what would have happened to all those kids? Like you changed their lives. So not only did you have your own, but like all these foster children that might not have had any chance in life, and you stepped up. So, I mean, I believe like that's a big part of it.
Yeah. And so you asked me about the planning, my 5-year-old drowning that night when I went to bed after the angel, appeared, and I went to bed, and she said, you have a lot of love someday. And so I went to bed, and nobody come to check on me. I got my nightgown, and, nobody cared. And so I'm with this knowledge now. My family don't love me. I wouldn't have known that at 5. And so I picked up this book, a nursery rhyme, and I flipped through, and always like the old woman lived in the shoe.
I knew you were going to say that. I just knew it.
And I had like a premonition. I looked at those beds lined up in a row, and something just let me know that's going to be my house someday. I'm going to have, I didn't know the word orphans, or, but I'm thinking I'd have orphans, something like that, that I would either have a lot of kids myself, or I would love children that other people didn't love. And that's my passion about adoption, is they are killed because they're not loved. They're not wanted. And that's just my passion that nobody can take away from me. They can argue all day. They're not taken away from me. And so, but it was so funny because after we adopted, and one Christmas, I thought, okay, for Christmas, I'm going to give our 2 sibling groups was 9 kids, and it was 8 girls and 1 little boy. Youngest was a boy. Aww. And so I thought, I'm going to turn our basement, because my boys, when they were teenagers, the basement ended up being their party place. They had their bedrooms down there, had a big living room, pool table and stuff. Well, now we got these girls, and I thought, I'm going to turn this one big living room into a 1 bedroom for the girls. I went and spent a fortune and bought canopy beds and the ruffle tops. I always wanted a canopy bed when I was a kid, but we were poor. So they all got canopy beds and this beautiful, comforters in the tops. And I painted it and you did all like flowers and embroidery. And I stood back to look at it because, they hadn't seen it. It was going to be their surprise. And I looked at it, and all of a sudden it come to me, the old woman living in the shoe, those beds lined up. I'm like, standing there like, what?
Yeah, what?
And then my next thought was, my ex always said, our property is shaped like a boot.
Oh, wow.
Okay. I thought, okay, life is so weird. Right? So yeah, are things planned? I think God just knows how it's going to go. And I think we're given a journey, pushed on a road where he would like us to go. And we can fight it. we can not go. We can,
Yeah.
like your journey you went on, you could have committed suicide that day and not fulfilled your
Right.
because we do have free will. You had the choice in your hands, just like, I do, everybody else. We have the choice whether we live another day. It's
Right.
always in our hands. Or we can say, you know what, I'm going to do something to help other people.
That's what I always tell people when they say, what do? The first thing I say is you find a purpose. Without a purpose, it's very difficult, to get up and just think it's another day and just go through the motions of getting through. That's not going to make any difference in anybody's life, and it's not going to bring your child back. And, if you choose to live in this world, you have the choice what you want to do with your days. And every day is precious because tomorrow's never promised, and everybody knows that. I mean, I hear lots of stories. People go to bed and they don't wake up, young kids, so you enjoy what you have. I mean, there's nothing you're going to do to bring back your loved one, nothing. So you
And when
either
we're
make
helping other people, we're not focusing on our pain. We're focusing on theirs and trying to make it
by
better.
helping others, it takes the pain off of me. It brings my attention to somebody else. I take their problems and I listen to their problems and I don't reflect on my problems. And when I'm given affirmation that I helped that person and they give me some love back, it's nice. You know what I mean? It's like I'll tell my boyfriend, oh my God, I'm so excited to share stories when I make a difference in someone's life. And he goes, oh, that's really nice. You should feel happy, even, the slightest thing that you do or say, can make a big change. And that's what I do. And that's what I'll do until I can't do it anymore. And I just know that when my time comes, my hand will be way up there looking for Brian and he'll come and get me. I know that now. But I'll tell you what, I'm still not 100% convinced. God would not let me be 100% convinced, because if I was 100% convinced that I could just see my son, there's many times when I get in that dark space that I might want to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I believe that 10% of me not really being 100% if I'm gonna go somewhere is what keeps me here.
Yeah, and see, that was what was different about me when I was under the influence of that Ambien. That I had 100% confidence, and I don't ever have that 100% confidence. I was going to go and into that road. I was going to see my kids and be with Jesus, and everything was going to be fine. I had a confidence, and I never have that. Like people will say, "Oh, you'll see your twin someday," and the other miscarriages and things I had, and I'm like, they said, "Don't you believe that?" And I'm like, that's too much to believe. That is too wonderful to picture. And so I'm glad I don't have that picture, because, like I say, we have it in our disposal, that we decide what's where we're going to go. And if we picture it that wonderful, then, and we don't know what it's going to be like. Both my NDEs was completely different. And, people hear these NDEs and, someone's so wonderful and beautiful and, like Eben, on a butterfly wing and things. And some people might think, oh, wow, I'm just going to go do that. You don't know you're getting Eben's experience.
No, and sometimes I read these really scary ones. I don't like to read those, I don't know, like there's some people that really talk about very scary things, and so you don't know what your experience is going to be like. Nobody's can tell you what it's going to be like, but I know you have to believe in God, and you have to believe that, there is a light and there is a beautiful place there. And I think if you believe, then you will go to where you should go.
And we may have lessons we need to learn before we're able to experience that beauty too.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. So, I mean, like, it's all a mystery. Nobody knows for sure. Like you said, like somebody who had a near-death experience, maybe their next one will be different. It's not always going to be exactly the same. A friend of mine who now passed had a near-death experience, and he explained to me that, he actually went and he was like sitting in a room with a lot of different people, and, they were talking to him, and like it was decided it wasn't his time, that he needed to go back and share this experience with people. And he did with me, because he knew how upset I was over losing Brian. And his story was very healing to me. And he said, I have absolutely no fear of death. He said, I saw my wife, but her back was towards me. I could not see her face because it was not my time. But I know when it is my time, she will be facing me, you know, and he was very spiritual. And, you know, he always told that story to everybody. And, you know, like I said, it's that kind of thing that gets me through. But I find a lot of people with near-death experiences don't like to share their stories publicly because it's very private.
Yeah.
You know, it's like with my new book, it's difficult, honestly, to get people to share. And it's not like I'm doing it because I want, like I said, the fame of being an author. That's the last thing I want. But these stories really do help. I mean, they really, really do. So I tell people, just go on these near-death experiences. And I'm going to share your videos as well, you know, because I know you have a lot of people on that have had near-death experiences, of which I'm going to watch because there's a lot I saw. And just
Well, on the near-death experience groups, it's common for me to, you know, happen to see someone that mentions having an NDE, and I'll message them and ask if they'd like to be on the show. And it's very common for them to get upset.
yes,
No
I
way.
noticed that. I noticed
No way.
that.
I am
know-
not sharing this publicly. You know, it's theirs. And, you know,
I
and mine was mine for a long time too. I didn't, it was just mine.
Why though? Why do you think they take offense? I mean, if I had a near-death experience, I think I would want,
Right.
if it was a positive one, I think I would be ecstatic to let people know.
I
that.
think a lot of them are afraid people are going to call them a liar, and they're
Yeah.
and those kind of things. Maybe they have a professional job,
Yes, that's
and they're
true.
afraid that they'll lose credibility. Maybe they're on this group and they don't want their family or anybody else to know, but they're on this
Yeah.
private group where they can talk about it. But and then others feel like it's wrong to share. They think that means that you're out to make money off your NDE.
Yeah. That's true.
So,
It's very, 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 very personal. I think that's the most personal experience you can possibly have, you know. But one girl shared a near-death experience with me, which I found so fascinating. She's in my new book, but it was something to the fact that there was levels, you know, like she actually was in one level and then she fell to the next and finally back to her body. But the one thing that I remember about her story was she was sitting at this table and all her relatives were there that had passed, and her mother was there. And she's like, Mom, why are you here? You know, because her mother was alive. And she's like telepathically, I think, you know, they were communicating and she really didn't get any answer. And lo and behold, her mother passed shortly after that.
I've heard that a few times on my guests.
I found that very fascinating, like, wow, you know, and
the other side is like there's no time. You
right.
know, like, you know, with my twins, we went forward in time. And I couldn't have been dead that long. And so I'm thinking, you know, later, how was there a scenario that if I would have died because I didn't die?
Right.
It was almost like these alternate universes or something, which I can't conceive of that. But then the drowning too, I think I was at more places than one at once, because she told me don't go yet. And so I thought I hovered above the pond. I never left. But yet then I have these memories just as clear as can be, as I went and did this, and then I went that way and did that, and then I went on down and did this. But I know I never left the center of that pond. And then it dawned on me, maybe we can be in more places at once. And so I think we can be in more time. I don't want to say zones, but, you know, time than one.
You know, listen, there's so much good information out there with experiences of people, you know, and I know, like, I remember too, and Steve Jobs, the one that died from pancreatic cancer, I believe, before he died, he was on his deathbed and they said his eyes got really wide and he went, oh, wow, oh, wow. And then he closed his eyes. And then also Betty White, who just recently passed at the ripe age of 99, they said the woman who was with her on her deathbed said that she just like looked up and she said, Alan, and she died. You know, her husband, Alan. So, I mean, it's those stories that, like, you have to believe. I have a lot of really beautiful stories in my new book of bedside stories where people, you know, they see relatives in their room. They talk to people in their room, you know. You have to believe. That's all I can say. It's
My husband's mother,
real.
her dead mother, come to her a couple days before she passed, and she says, Janice, don't get in a hurry. Because
Don't what?
Janice, don't get in a hurry.
Oh,
Because both Janice and her mother, my husband's mother, they had both been nurses. And I think when the doctor told Janice to go home and die, she took it literally as doctor's orders. It's like she got her hospital bed, she went right in front of the window, and she just laid there like, okay, I'm dying.
oh my,
And her mom came and said, Janice, don't get in a hurry. And it was so fitting because that's exactly what I could tell she was doing.
oh
And so
my,
when I heard her mom visited her like that, I said, because her daughter told me that. And I said, Janice, I said, we have talked about me writing a little memoir for you because she had read my book before. And I said, I think it's time because I'm thinking, don't put this off another day. And it's a good thing I didn't.
yeah.
And so I sat with her and I said, what's your earliest memory? Because that's what I do with my book. What was my earliest memory? And I just let her go on where she wanted to go. And she stared at the ceiling at hospital bed. And I knew I was walking this woman home. She was reliving, she was having her life review. It was like, oh, I'm curled up in my daddy's shoulder and we're going to Woolworths to buy him a new jacket. And oh, I just love my daddy. And oh, I can just feel him. And she was reliving this. And this man was gone before I ever met my husband. She was gone a long time. And her mother was a widow for a long time before she passed. And then she went on to her horse called King and talked about what it looked like. And she talked about running around with her brother, chasing the chickens and all these things. And you could tell she was there.
Right there, right?
Just,
Yeah.
and so I just wrote all this down in her words as she's doing it. A couple of days later, just like the next day, she went like non-responsive.
Yeah.
Before she died. And so it hit me the morning of her funeral that I was to read that at her funeral. And I did. And people were like mouths hanging open. They said, Peggy, it wasn't you telling, it was her.
Aw.
And we could hear her talking. But I wrote down how she talked, how she said it. It was in her voice. And her husband was just looking at me. And people were coming up like, I want a copy of that. And I thought, I'd love to be able to do this for people. To go with them on their deathbed and write their little memoir and read it at their or somebody else could even do it, read it at their funeral. It was just a pleasure.
It's a beautiful thing. I know with my mom who died 6 months after my son, and honestly, I never really told her that Brian passed because she was in her 90s and she could never have taken that. But the day she passed, I was not at the hospital. She was in a nursing home and she was supposed to go for a procedure and she didn't want to go. So I'm not going. And I said, Mom, you have to, because she had water in her lungs. You have to do this. I'm not going. So when I got there, she had already passed and I'm so upset. I just lost my son and now my mother. But the nurse came to me and she said, I just want to tell you, your mother's passing was the most beautiful thing I ever saw. She was lying in bed and people were there trying to get her to go on the gurney to go to this test. And she looked to the left, she looked to the right, she looked up above and smiled, closed her eyes as if she was seeing things, And on the way home, I was so upset and I saw a missed call from her. And I'm like, oh, I missed her call. Like I felt bad enough. And I couldn't understand it. It was like, I couldn't understand what she was saying. And I played it over and over it. I put it to my ear and I kept trying to hear what she was trying to say. And she said, Carol, my hair is red again. Good night. And it was right before she passed. So my mother was vain. She always was so happy. She had beautiful red hair. And when she got sick, she couldn't go to the hair salon. Her hair turned gray. I want my red hair back. I hate this gray hair. And on the thing, she goes, my hair is red again. Good night. So it's almost like she was there and she became young again. And, my mother, when she was young, danced with Frank Sinatra. And she told the world this story. Oh, I danced with Frank Sinatra. And I went, I should have married him. So when I got home, I told, my boyfriend she passed. And I sat on the couch and he put the TV on. He goes, just watch TV, maybe you'll relax. And the song I Did It My Way came on from Frank Sinatra.
Good
so
song.
Okay, Mom, you're there. You did it your way. She wasn't going for that test. No way, no how. And she passed.
Before my mother-in-law, I never said the words or put the two words together, beautiful death. I didn't know there was such thing. But that's all I said is, she had a beautiful death. So you
Yes.
can have a beautiful death.
Listen, they always say you can't avoid two things, paying taxes and death, and that's true. No matter how we're going to look at it or try to avoid it, we're all going there. So,
Yeah. Actually, I take
feel-
that back. My ex-husband's mother-in-law, that's where I come up with the first time I said beautiful death. She had all her kids around her. She had 12 kids, a big Catholic family, was all singing the hymns and stuff. And then I went right after she passed. I didn't know she was going to pass. I walked into this right after. Here's all her kids, their spouses. And I never thought anything, heard of, like, I don't want to say the word possession. There's a word for it. It was like somebody takes over your body. And because I wasn't close with my ex's family, and the one I was least close to, he's standing there first in line, and I just started hugging him. And as soon as they was all like standing, like they didn't know what to do, their mom just died. They're just like in shock, and they're just standing there, and all lined up. It's so quiet in the hallway. And I went to the first one, and I hugged him, and I said, "You're so fortunate you had such a good Christian mother." And he's bald. And then I'll go to the next one, hug him, say something, and then they'd bald. It's like there was a statue until I hugged him, and they bald. And I realized this sounds crazy. I'm thinking in my head, of course I don't say it out loud. I feel like Pappy. That's why I call my ex-brother-in-law. So everybody called him Pappy. I feel like Pappy's in me, and he's hugging his kids, and they don't know it. But like their body's reacting to it, like they know something.
I get it.
They don't like me. I don't like them. We don't hug. I'm not a hugging person either. I am not a hugger. And I just start hugging these people. And then my ex come and he said, they're cleaning mom up now after the kids that want to go in. He says, you can go in and see mom. I was like, okay. And so I went in and I grabbed my daughter-in-law by the hands. She go with me. And there was, his brother and sister and a sister-in-law was in there on the other side of the room. Of course, mind you, we were never close. Let's just say it mildly.
Yeah.
And so I'm in this room with them. And so I looked down at her and because I want to say goodbye to her. And because I had come to see her, I got her flowers and a card, And so I put my hand on her arm. And as soon as I did, it was like picking up the phone and we're talking. And she was telling me to help her come back.
Oh,
I
wow.
can help you come back. And that's when I said the words. I said, you had a beautiful death. I said, you were surrounded by your children and you were saying these prayers and these things. You fell and broke your hip. You had a massive heart attack. There's nothing here for you but pain. And if you did come back, you'd have nothing but pain. And then maybe not a good death. Maybe your kids wouldn't be there. I'm like, isn't Pappy there? Isn't your siblings, your parents? Go find somebody, I'm thinking, stop talking to me. And I didn't know those things existed.
That's beautiful. Maybe you need to work in hospice and you could tell all these people to reminisce their stories. And
I would like to.
no,
I really
seriously,
would.
I see that in you. I'm very, what's the word? I can't think of the word. Intuitive. I just see you being a hospice nurse and giving people that so many people, they die alone, they have nobody. And what you did is such a beautiful thing to get people to reminisce, because then you're not even thinking about dying. You know what I mean? That's a beautiful thing. I like that.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure, listen, when my time comes, I can't say I'm not going to be petrified, and, but like I said, that's inevitable. We're all going there. And so I just hope and pray that when it's my time, it's a beautiful death, like you say.
Yeah. And I never had this beautiful near-death experience like a lot of them had. Mine weren't like that. Yeah. And so, I guess my drowning, it wasn't beautiful, but it was kind of funny. Now it seems funny. But a year ago, January, I got really sick. And I was sick for 4 days. I was like 13 pounds. And I didn't want to go to the hospital because the whole COVID thing. I was afraid I wouldn't be able to see my husband. I would die there alone. So I'm going to die right here with my husband. I'm not going to die there. And I don't want to be incubated or whatever. And so I'm like, I refuse. He called the squad twice and had me get on the phone. I'm like, I refuse to go. And so the fourth night, I had been, I pass out easily. And so when I feel sick, I know to lay on the bathroom floor. And it sounds gross, but I just go out both ends at once and I pass out. That's just my body, right? Yeah. And so that's what I've been doing. Well, this day, my husband said, don't lay on that cold floor. Wait and let me go get you a blanket. So now I'm sitting up on the toilet waiting for him to get me a blanket. And I thought, oh, I'm going to pass out. And what happened is I fell and I hit the floor. Well, when I did, I'm suddenly out of my body, but it was just a few
Oh,
seconds.
goodness. Wow.
And it was all black. And I thought, oh, I'm out of my body. Like I knew it like that. And I was between my body and the wall of the bathroom. I knew where I was. I didn't go anywhere. I was right there. But the thing was, it seemed like, I know it sounds weird, but it seemed like inside the wall, because there was just like this divider there, inside that wall was this whole sea of people having a party.
Oh, God.
And they're all tight, close together. You know, this distance people keep, you know, they didn't do that. They were tight together. They were just like squished together. And and I could hear the different levels of voices from high, low, man, woman, short and tall. And then it's like kind of like when I think I seen Jesus' feet, it's like I think I saw like their heads. It's like like if you hear something outside, like, oh, I think that's a cat out there, you know, so your body sees a cat. And I think it's like that, like we see what we think.
Right.
And so I could hear him talking, and I focused on this one woman's voice, and I was saying, huh, what, you know, like when you're at a swimming pool and you're underwater, how it all sounds muffled above. And so I'm like, huh, what'd you say? And then in the distance I could hear my husband saying, baby, like, you know, try and get me awake. And I'm like, but I want to know what she's saying. And then I got to a point, it was like, you can either go on and find out what they're saying and be a part of that, or go back. But like I had a choice to make, and I'm getting back to my husband, you know. But it's just tiny little few seconds. And I thought, oh, wow, I think I have a happy experience now. It's just tiny little, it's not a near-death experience, tiny little few seconds out of the body. But I felt it changed me. Because, you know, a near-death death experience, you feel different, and like you have these different connections. And it was just a little thing. It helps me relate now to, because I started my podcast right after that. I started my podcast in March, 2 months after that happened. And so sometimes when people are talking stuff I can't relate to, like, but I can now because of that. And you know, like your son, you know, I didn't have an adult, you know, of course, I was only 2 months pregnant. But, you know, as a mother, I can still, you know, I know we don't get over it, and we're not supposed to. And then teddy bears, I was going to say, you know, something like that we can hold, because our love is invisible, but we still have it. And so when you have something physical you can hold on to and give that love to. Oh, you think of little girls with their dolls and their bears. And, you know, one of my boys, Jeremy Simpson, when he had My Pony too, he was a cuddler. And so, you know, even I miss my grandkids really bad. And so I have a pillow I call Allie and Gia, because I miss them. And, you know, and so I just hug my pillow every night. I call it my Allie Gia pillow. And, but yeah, I love it. I love what you've done. And it's so cool that your son made the Beanie Babies, and then you end up making these bears. It's just like, you can see his handiwork.
Yes, I'm very creative, and I'm glad that I was able to turn that into something positive for our people. Because if you just Google like comfort bear on the computer, you'll see pictures of so many kids sleeping with the bear, holding the bear. Oh, it's so beautiful to see. I mean, and they have big smiles on their face, and they're holding them so tight, you know. But on my website, like, I make lots of bears, not just that one. I make a camouflage bear wearing a camouflage headband, and it's a warrior bear. Then I made a hippie bear. I mean, there's all different kinds. My imagination just ran away with me, and there's like 7 or 8 different variations. But the comfort bear is the one that people seem to really want. Like, they get one, and then I get people reaching out, I need 6. I'm giving them out to, you know, different people that lost their children. So I
used to make rag dolls. I gave them all away. I just make them give away.
Yeah, so listen, it is who I am, you know, and I'm very honored to have been on your show. I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to share my story, because that's what I love to do most. And I hope anybody who's watching this will reach out to me if you want to. I have a website, alifeforbrian.org, where you can go and contact me there. I have Facebook pages, A Life for Brian and Carol Cooper. You can connect with me there. And I'm looking for stories for my next book. If anybody wants to share their story with me, I am so happy to do so. You just have to reach out to me, and I'll be
Oh,
glad.
that's right. I gave you my drowning story. I forgot about that for your.
Yes, yes. So again, like I said, all of your stories will help other people. And it's also a chance to honor somebody, because I always encourage people to send a picture with their story. So, you know, there are people that are private that don't want to do that, and I respect that. But there's a lot of people who are totally honored to have their loved one put in a book so they can have it. So either way, it's good with me.
And you're so easy to connect to.
Thank you.
I mean,
try.
some people do this work. I'm thinking they're just so cold and
No, not me.
balls up. And I
No,
thought I
no,
couldn't
no.
imagine going to that person.
No, I'm very reachable, and I've been through it, and I can relate. And anybody who has lost an only child, honestly, and I don't want to keep saying that, because I'm telling you, any grief, any loss is grief. But for someone losing an only child, it's really hard. You know, it's really hard, because I don't have anybody else to focus on. You know, like I can't, and the fact that I can never have a grandchild, that's really hard. You know, because I really wanted grandchildren, you know. So, you know, I'm reachable, and I'm always here, and never feel like I'm not. And yeah, that's it. So
Awesome.
thank you.
Well, thank you so much. It's
And
been
I'm
great.
sure we'll talk soon again.
Okay.
Okay, take care now.
Uh-huh.
Bye-bye, everybody. Bye.
Bye.